I'm Aidan Hallett and I work with Refugee Action, and I help to run a game called Navigating Safety. It was a game that I devised with some friends about 5 years ago. We were thinking about different ways of communicating the experience of asylum seekers to people who perhaps didn't know anything at all about that experience, and we wanted to find something that was a bit more that would involve people more rather than just talking to people, as we wanted people to get involved in an activity or an experience that we hoped would sort of live with them for a while. And quite some time ago, in 1996, my wife and I went to the Simon Wiesenthal Museum of Tolerance in Los Angeles, and one of the things they did there was to give us an identity card of somebody who had been a victim of the Holocaust, and as we went around the museum we put the cards into readers and were told at different dates as the exhibition unfolded what had happened to our character, and I had the character of a young girl, and it didn't matter that I was an adult man. For the purposes of going around that museum, the fact that I had a character meant that I could feel a tiny little bit more about her story, or the reality of her story, than I would have done if I'd simply been told this is what happened to these people. I was able to a very small degree to imagine myself in her character, and at one point there was a door marked men only and another one marked women and children, and I went through the women and children door without thinking, because I was a girl. And although that was only a very small thing, it stayed with me. And then when we were thinking about developing a game, it struck me that we needed to create characters so that the participants in the game could have a character and could in some way try and think through what was happening to them as if they were that character. So when we developed Navigating Safety, we created these characters. We've got a maximum of 40 players in the game, 10 from each of 4 countries, Democratic Republic of Congo, Iraq, Zimbabwe and Somalia. The characters are some male, some female, some young, some old, some with family, some without, some working, some not working, and each of them is given a certain amount of information, including why they are in danger. And for some people the why they are in danger is exceedingly serious, and for some people perhaps it's not so serious. So we've got a variety of experiences, but all of them are experiences based on the stories of asylum seekers and refugees that I've heard. So I believe that they're true in the broadest sense, and all of them could be reasons, quite legitimate reasons, why people would be fearful enough to flee their home. And each person is also given some money, a limited amount of money for each character, and with that money they have to negotiate paying an agent to help them get out of their country. And all through the game we have designed in points at which people's choices are taken from them, because it's quite clear from every discussion I've had with an asylum seeker about their story, and particularly their journey, that their choices are taken away from them by circumstance, by persecution, by having to trust an agent with your life and letting them make the decisions, by the system in the UK, which in many cases it's very difficult to negotiate, both in terms of claiming asylum and in terms of the support that you're entitled to get while you are waiting for your decision. And so I wanted people to realise that if you become a refugee, you lose a huge amount of your power to make decisions about your life, and also to recognise that along with losing that power to make decisions, you also leave behind you a lot of who you are, because so much of who we are is tied up with where we are and the context in which we live, and particularly if we live in our own home country and have lived there for a long time. If you suddenly lose all of that, you lose a lot of your sense of who you are. And so what we do is we give people character cards, we give them a certain amount of money, and we take them through the stages of deciding to flee, how they travel, dealing with agents, arriving in a new country not knowing what to do, and then receiving their decision from the Home Office and what happens after that. And what we hope is that by helping people to play the game in character, they'll get a tiny little flavour of what it might be like for an asylum seeker or a refugee. It can never recreate what it's like. I can never experience what it's like, not having been a refugee myself, but what we hope is that giving people characters enables people just to suspend disbelief for a while and imagine how it might be if it were happening to them.
And does the game also have a blog or a website?
It doesn't, no, I'm afraid.
Are there any plans around?
Well, at the moment we're using it in the context of work that Refugee Action does. Two of the three of us who devised the game work with Refugee Action, and so I've tended to use it usually in the context of something that Refugee Action's involved in, whether it's awareness raising or conferences or whatever, but it's something that I very much enjoy using, and people do seem to be able to embrace the being a character in the game idea, and certainly from the feedback that we've got, it seems that people find that I suppose allows them to feel more of the challenge of what asylum seekers go through than if they were just being told something.
Thank you very much, Aidan.